Two bills this session aim to fight meth production. One would empower pharmacists to turn away suspicious customers and steer people to alternative drugs that don't contain pseudoephedrine. The other would make pseudoephedrine prescription only. Attempts to pass prescription-only bills have failed in the past, but some say it's the only way to solve the statewide problem. Drew Doddelin has more.
Harry Webb's Family Pharmacy in Rochester, Indiana has something you won't see in many other pharmacies, a sign behind the counter as you pick up your prescription that reads, "We are proud to be part of the solution to reduce meth manufacturing in Fulton County."
We have no money. We're not a big, this is a Citizens Action Committee, has no funding from anybody. It's just all grassroots effort.
There's no arguing that meth labs are a problem in Indiana. Indiana has been #1 in the country for meth lab seizures in recent years, and state officials say they expect the same for 2015. It's a relatively new problem. In 1995, there were 6 lab seizures in the state. In 2014, there were almost 1,500. Those numbers shot up because of the one-pot method, a new way to cook meth in small batches that requires easier to obtain ingredients than methods in the past. Household items like lithium batteries and drain cleaner would be hard to keep from getting into the hands of a meth cook. But drugs containing pseudoephedrine, a decongestant and a key ingredient in the one-pot method, are a different story. Efforts have been made to legitimize pseudoephedrine sales, but they haven't worked. In 2006, the federal government enacted the Combat Methamphetamine Epidemic Act, putting the drugs behind the counter. Indiana took that one step further. In 2011, it joined other states in using Inplex, a digital logbook which keeps track of pseudoephedrine sales, requiring customers to sign a piece of paper when they check out. It also puts a limit on the amount of pseudoephedrine a single person can buy. Despite its intentions, meth lab seizures increased after Inplex kicked in. Delaware County Prosecutor Jeff Arnold, who works in the county that consistently seizes more meth labs than anywhere else in the state, says it actually made things worse.
You are a meth cooker. You have reached your limit of pseudoephedrine that you can get for the year. I'm a friend of yours. I've tried meth. You either pay me or give me some of your product to go out and buy pseudoephedrine so you can cook it. As a result of that, you teach me how to cook meth.
Those friends are what are known as Smurfs. Arnold says on average in Indiana, each meth cook teaches about 10 others how to cook. Smurfing networks often go out in groups, hitting pharmacies one after another to gather as much product as they can.
I've had customers come up to the counter and say, "Hey man, you got some 2120s? I go, "What's that?" "Oh yeah, Sudafed 12-hour 20-pack. Okay, that's an instant. When you start using street slang of like that, it's an easy spot.
Webb's Family Pharmacy has made efforts to legitimize pseudoephedrine sales for years, but Webb says he was naive in thinking other stores were doing the same. Nearby chains like Walgreens and Walmart were selling huge quantities every month to customers Webb says could be clearly identified as illegitimate.
Once I realized how much they were just turning a blind eye and not doing anything to restrict the sale, when you can have your truck come in, and you get 60 boxes of pseudoephedrine 12-hour 20 packs in, and they're gone in 3 hours. That's ridiculous. Totally insane that kind of behavior was even allowed to happen.
So he worked to get an ordinance passed in Fulton County, mandating pharmacists have a conversation with customers to steer them towards meth-deterrent alternatives, and to refuse the sale if there is reason for suspicion. To his surprise, the pharmacy at Walmart agreed on all terms. Soon after, Walgreens agreed as well, and the ordinance passed.
We've driven the Smurfs out of Fulton County, but they go to neighboring counties. So it's important for us to take a step statewide.
Senator Randy Head is the author of a new bill to be heard this legislative session that would essentially turn Fulton County's ordinance into statewide law. It's based on legislation passed in Arkansas 4 years ago. The results there have been dramatic. The month Arkansas's bill went into effect, pseudoephedrine sales dropped 60%, and those numbers haven't moved much since. Meth lab seizures before the bill were around 310. This year it's around 25. There were some pharmacists, especially in big retailers, that pushed back against the law because they saw it as intrusive. Years later, most seem happy with the results. That pushback, as well as an inconvenience for genuine customers, is the crux of the argument for the second bill being proposed in Indiana, a prescription-only bill, which is getting support from the state's Prosecuting Attorneys Council. Their executive director, Dave Powell, says misinformation about what impact a prescription-only bill would have has kept it from passing in recent years.
This is about greed from the pharmaceuticals and retailers, because they create this message that creates fear. and it's not an honest message.
Powell says rhetoric attacking the prescription-only bill typically references cold medicines, a much broader drug classification than the law would concern. He also says pharmacists shouldn't be expected to perform as a doctor, deciding who should be allowed to buy certain drugs. But Webb says it's a decision he as a healthcare professional feels comfortable making, and Head says he is confident most pharmacists will feel the same.
It does deal with human nature, and it's not going to be an exact science, so we don't say that this is absolutely foolproof or that the pharmacist is even going to be right every time. A lot of times they might not be. But in Fulton County, what we're finding is that pharmacies, for instance, Harry's Pharmacy, will sell only to previous customers, and no one else can come in and get Sudafed from him, and they're getting a control on this horrible meth lab situation that way.
Webb says having to talk to some customers, suggesting alternative decongestants like Nexafed that he says works comparably to typical pseudoephedrine drugs, is worth doing if it could finally rid communities like his of destructive, dangerous meth lab homes.
I've seen an impact on what it's doing to our community. You know, it's costing our county millions of dollars. You know, there's other argument going around, well, this isn't going to end meth. And no, this isn't going to end meth. And yes, the Mexican cartels are going to bring meth into our area. This issue is trying to end meth labs.
Lawmakers will decide if either option works for them in the coming session.
And people on both sides of the issue told us they would support the other bill if theirs falls through. The most common sentiment between them is that when it comes to meth labs in Indiana, something has to be done.